It's been 1 year since the launch of the Nintendo Switch 2, and roughly 400 games have been released in that time. Today, we're going to count down my favorite 25 games to come to the system. So let's have a look at a few rules and regulations before we get to the countdown. Only Switch 2 games are applicable, no Switch 1 games here. If I've played a game on another system, it has 18 months to be released on the Nintendo Switch 2 to be applicable for this list. This usually happens when a system has just been released. It does take some time for games to come to the system, so that's why I've given it an 18-month window. If I've played a game on Nintendo Switch 1, for example, Super Mario Bros. Wonder, only the Switch 2 content will be applicable. So this is a way to prevent Switch 1 games sort of being on this list artificially. And of course, I think you either have to beat the game or play a sizable chunk of it for it to be eligible in a list like this. No playing a highly reviewed game for 30 minutes and sort of agreeing with the critics and just chucking it on the list. I have played these games. These are games that I recommend. I plan to update this list every 6 months during the life of the Nintendo Switch 2. So here's some games that could end up on this list in 6 months' time. Here are 12 games that I haven't picked up but would be interested in playing. Here are 12 games that are currently in my backlog. And here are 12 games that are set to be released over the next 6 months. So with all of that out of the way, let's get into the countdown. So at number 25, we have Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, and it was great to play as Samus once again. This was a game of high highs and low lows. I found all the weapons and the dungeons throughout the world to be really quite fantastic. I found a few of the bosses to be a bit too difficult in my opinion, and also there was a lot of backtracking throughout this game, which felt like unrequired padding to the game's run length. I feel like with a few changes, this game could have been truly spectacular. At number 24, we have WWE 2K26, which is a game I've sort of been playing off and on over the last few weeks, and I have to say that this game has so much content that younger me would be certainly excited when thinking back to playing games like Here Comes the Pain in my childhood. I'm really enjoying the GM mode, and it is fun to play through CM Punk's story as well. And the battle fight system is top-notch too. At number 23, we have Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3+4, which is a huge nostalgia game for me. I used to play Tony Hawk's 3 on my dad's PC, going back probably 25 years at this point. And I remember full well pulling off million-point combos in the airport, and I can tell you there was no way that I was getting anywhere close to that today. And Tony Hawk face-planted quite a few times, more than I'm willing to admit, but I had a hell of a lot of fun playing and revisiting that game. Tony Hawk 4 in this package, I think, is the weaker point of the two, but it still is a really good, fun time to play. At number 22 is Plants vs. Zombies Replanted. Basically, the definitive version of this really great classic game. I played the original back probably 15 years ago when it came out. I reckon I've played it on PlayStation Vita, on an iPad, and on the computer as well. And on the Switch might be the best place to play now because you can play it at home or on the go. And this original format of this game is just as addictive as it ever was, and I had an absolutely fantastic time revisiting it. At number 21 is Kena Bridge of Spirits, which would definitely be receiving a nomination for best visuals on the system. This game is very, very pretty to look at, and it has a very fun action-like gameplay as well. There are a few platforming sections throughout the game that leave a bit to be desired, but overall, this is a really fun adventure game to play, and I'm definitely looking forward to the sequel. Hopefully, it comes to the Switch too as well. At number 20 is Call of the Elder Gods, which is a really fun puzzle adventure game, roughly 5 hours in length. You can see my review of that game on the channel as well. And this is one that really did test you in terms of the puzzles throughout the game, but you really always felt they were within reach, and you felt incredibly satisfied when you solved them. And with also being able to remove the journaling system in the game, the ability to make the game either easy or harder is really fantastic too. At number 19 is Hollow Knight Silksong. It's probably lower on this list because for the life of me, I just cannot get through some of these sections without getting quite frustrated. But the hand-drawn style and some of these platforming sections are absolutely fantastic. It definitely is a challenging game, probably the hardest one on this list. But every time you get through another difficult area, there is definitely a sense of satisfaction that most games will struggle to match. At number 18 is Pokemon Legends ZA, and while this game is definitely not a looker, the gameplay of this Pokemon is probably the best the series has seen so far. Going through the wild zones throughout the area and discovering new Pokemon is always going to be a joy, and I really enjoyed from a story perspective this sort of leveling system going from Z all the way up to A, and ultimately getting to save the city. At number 17 is the most recently released game on this list, and that is Stray. A fun action adventure game playing as an orange tabby cat in a really cool robot-led world. I think the setting for this game is absolutely fantastic, and the story that goes with it as well keeps you on the edge of your seat the whole time. This game is definitely a looker as well on Switch 2. And while it only takes around 5 hours to beat, it's the sort of adventure that you could play again without any worries. At number 16 is the definition of a hidden gem. It's Kunitsugami Path of the Goddess. And this is essentially a tower defense style game mixed with base building and this really great sort of Japanese visual style and this great Japanese story. There is no dialogue as such, but it's all very visual and theatric, and the enemies are distinctive as well. This is a game that I think most people will overlook, especially due to the name, but it's one that you should put firmly on your radar if you haven't been aware of it. At number 15 is Vampire Crawlers, and I have to say this studio can make addictive games like no other. This game took 20 hours from me quicker than any other game on this list. Following in the footsteps of Vampire Survivors, this is a dungeon crawler with deck building mechanics that has a really great use of a combo system as well, using all the characters and items from the Vampire Survivors series. This brings it to another genre and does it really, really well. I'm excited to see what other ideas they might have for this franchise now. At number 14 is Darwin's Paradox. This is a really, really great platformer published by Konami. Took me roughly 5 hours to beat as well. I find this game completely beautiful to look at. The platforming sections were challenging at times, but incredibly approachable. And the game doesn't have a lot of different mechanics, but it uses them very well because you learn the ability to shoot ink, for example, and you get to learn to use it in many, many different ways. This game is really clever and one that I hope we get to see a sequel for in a few years' time. At number 13 is the great launch title, Mario Kart World. And I've always been a very big Mario Kart fan, and this might be one of the best ones. The biggest issue might just be that it follows Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, which probably puts its hand up for being one of the best racing games ever released, let alone the best Mario Kart. The addition of an open world with fun little challenges throughout was a really good decision. I think one of the negative ones, though, ended up being in the Grand Prix where you're racing from one track to another. But the introduction of the Knockout Tour is one that I hope stays in Mario Kart for every iteration to come. At number 12 is Dave the Diver. I played this over New Year's and had a really fun time playing it. Surprised I hadn't played it up to that point, and I'm looking forward to the DLC coming later this month. This is a great sort of fishing game where you've got story going through it as well, and then at night you run a sushi bar using the fish that you catch. And so there's this managerial side of raising money, but also using that to upgrade your equipment as well. There is system upon system upon system upon system in this game, and somehow it manages it perfectly. At number 11, it is the great puzzle roguelike Blueprints. This is a very interesting and original game, and you can get out what you put into this game because you can just go and roll credits. Usually takes people between 15 to 20 hours to get to that point to find room 46. But if you want to solve all of the mysteries throughout the mansion, you can be there for hundreds of hours easily. This is an unbelievably clever and deep game, and some of the mysteries are still yet to be solved. It's time for the top 10, and coming in at that number 10 position is the arcade dream Sectori. Made by just one man, Sectori is an arcade sort of twin stick shooter, and it's heavily inspired by Geometry Wars. This is a very difficult game at first. The normal and hard difficulties don't unlock until you at least understand how to play the game first. There are also the addition of extra modes which teach the different mechanics, but also have this great high score system attached to them as well. I really like the mode Gates, where you're only allowed to move around, and each time you go through a gate, they'll explode, destroying the enemies around them. So it becomes dodging and weaving, and then hopefully going through a gate to survive another day. This is a game I can see myself picking up and playing for 15, 20 minutes for months and years to come. And every time I go to play for 15, 20 minutes, an hour will be lost very, very quickly. At number 9, we have the co-op game Split Fiction, which came to the system at launch. This game is very, very clever and really fun to play with somebody, especially just on the couch. I played this with my partner, had an absolute blast doing so. If you've played this, when I say the last chapter of this game is something I haven't seen in any other game before, the people that know what I'm talking about will definitely agree. This game is fun, it is clever, and while I think the story doesn't hit the heights of It Takes Two, this team are showing how co-op games should be made. At number 8 is Mini Shoot Adventures. This game was on my radar since it was initially released in 2024, but we had to wait until earlier this year for it to come to consoles, and I picked it up day one and had an absolute blast from start to finish. This game is very, very clever, made only by 2 people. It is a twin stick shooter and really heavily inspired by Zelda. You've got dungeons and collecting heart pieces and things like that. This game is really, really fun. Potentially the only negative is it doesn't explain a lot of the things. You have to learn them yourself. But when a game like this is as fun as it is, you really don't mind going through that process. At number 7, we have Ball Pit, which definitely is a game you just say, just one more, just one more, just one more, and then it's 2 a.m. and you're bleary eyed thinking, what just happened? This brick breaking masterpiece ties in with a base building sort of mechanic, which ties into upgrades for the battles you face ahead. This is a really clever game with a lot of RPG mechanics, and it's also just very, very fun. Beating bosses is always going to be an absolute joy in this game. The first time you always face them, they get the upper hand, and then when you finally take them down, there is a sense of joy that comes over you. This is a really addictive game, one that is going to get a lot of extra content coming to it over the years because it's been a big success. At number 6, we have Mixtape, and this is just a shorter game. It took me roughly 2 hours and 45 minutes to beat, and this was made by a Melbourne studio, Beethoven and Dinosaur, who made The Artful Escape. This is essentially a game following 3 teenagers, basically on their last day of high school before they go off to start the rest of their lives, and it's set to a really fantastic soundtrack, and essentially the game becomes 25 sort of interactive music videos as you play through the story as well. And I had so much fun playing this, and it's actually one that I've played twice and tracked down the soundtrack to listen to after the fact. As a musician, I really enjoyed this game. I liked the story and would like to see more games like this actually get released, as it helps push the medium forward. At number 5, we have Lorelei and the Laser Eyes. This is one of the best puzzle games I have ever played, and it's sort of an adventure game as well. Lorelei comes to a mansion, and the great thing about this game is you see puzzles early on and you think to yourself, there is no way in hell I'm ever going to solve these things, only to come back to them hours later, look at it and solve it in seconds, because this game is really clever in the progression that it shows you. It can be tense at times, and the story that is told to you is really well done, and one that makes you want to find out what happens. And as you solve puzzles throughout the world, the story will slowly be shared with you as Lorelei remembers what happens. But ultimately, this is going to be a game where you look back at all of the scribbled notes that you have kept as you've learned the systems throughout these puzzles, and the feeling of joy as you solve them. At number 4, we have the action roguelite Hades 2, which came out late last year. This game strikes a really great balance of challenge, but after dying, providing you with a good level of upgrades, which helps you for the next fight. And slowly but surely, you not only learn the game and its systems, but your character gets stronger as well. And you can pick out different loadouts every single run to find what works great for you. I find the visual style of this game to be absolutely spectacular, with what feels like an endless amount of things to do. Hades, when it came out back in 2021, won awards for its stellar game, and I feel like its sequel surpasses it in just about every way. At number 3, we have Capcom's new sci-fi action adventure, Pragmata, and this is a game I think is damn near perfect. I absolutely loved the setting, the story, the gameplay, the visuals, just how it felt in every moment throughout the game. I think that this is a game that should inspire the direction for where AAA studios should go over the next few years, because I find where a lot of AAA studios are trying to justify their price tag with a lot of playable hours, Pragmata uses its comparatively shorter runtime to refine every moment throughout the adventure. so that it feels like there is little to no bloat throughout the entire runtime. The hacking mechanic leading into shooting is something that I'm surprised games haven't done before because it works so very, very well. And getting to see Diana as an AI character sort of evolve over the journey was really something special as well. Crashing into the second position of our list is Donkey Kong Bonanza. And when I played this game back at the Switch 2 experience in May last year, I left it thinking that the smashing mechanic was fun, but I wondered if the game would have enough depth to keep me engaged throughout its runtime, and I was very happy to be proven wrong because this game is really something special. We've waited almost 30 years for another 3D Donkey Kong experience, and it was more than worth the wait. The addition of Pauline, especially using the music mechanics as well that she brought in, was really nice. It was fun and really catchy. You found yourself sort of tapping your feet along while you were playing. Each level of the underground added a different flavor to keep you engaged as you worked your way to the planet's core. And the story for a Donkey Kong game really was pretty darn special as well. This proves that Nintendo still has the ability to find that great feeling of fun. And at number 1, we have Pokemon Pocopia, which I think would have surprised a lot of people when it was first announced back in September. But as we sit here today, it is my opinion that this is the best game to play on the Nintendo Switch 2. Playing as a Ditto, you are trying to find out where all the humans are gone, and you are restoring the world with your Pokemon pals in hopes that they'll return once they see that the world has cleared up a little. Heavily inspired by games like Animal Crossing and Minecraft, this game is absolutely huge with so many different things to do. There are a lot of building mechanics, roughly 300 Pokemon, and a really engaging story throughout the 5 separate worlds that really do teach you the systems, so that once the credits have rolled, you begin to learn that your time with the game is only just beginning. I hope to see lots of DLC coming to this game over the coming years, because my favorite part of this game is the constant discovery that you have throughout it, and the ability for more Pokemon, more story, more items, more ideas that can come to this absolutely incredibly deep game makes you realize that what we've played so far might only be just the beginning. This is a game that you get out what you put into it, and for certain people, I could easily see them putting more than 1,000 hours into this game. There is seriously that much to do, and you can let your creativity run absolutely wild. So there you have it. Those are my top 25 Nintendo Switch 2 games as of June 2026. Let me know what you think. Was that game too high, too low? Can you believe that one didn't even get on the list? My name is Dazzler. Thank you very much for watching. Have yourself a fantastic day. I'll see you later.